Welcome back to another episode of Better Than I Found It, the podcast that is all things college golf. My guest today is my predecessor here at Baylor, longtime BU golf coach Greg Priest. Greg, who is currently the Director of Athletics for the Tyler Independent Public Schools, coached numerous All-Americans at Baylor, a Palmer Cup participant, and even a Big 12 individual champion. His players were not just great athletes, but they also set a high standard in the classroom as well. Greg and I talk about our days as rival assistant coaches at OSU and UT, as well as a blood pact he and I signed in the summer of 2001. It's a good listen. I hope you enjoy. All right, everybody. Welcome to the Better Than I Found It podcast today. Former Baylor men's golf coach Greg Priest, really good friend of mine. Greg, thanks for joining me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I've been wanting to do this podcast for quite a while. I wouldn't have my job if it weren't for you. This job at Baylor would not be mine if it wasn't for you telling Ian McGraw to give me a call. So I want to publicly thank you for that back in 2014.
You bet. That was a no-brainer right there.
Well, first of all, let me ask, since we're going to catch up a little bit here, how are Nita and Tyler and Kate doing? How's the family doing?
Everybody's doing good. Tyler's actually playing in a baseball tournament right now, so I didn't go today, but I am watching it. It's on a live stream, so I am watching that. But everybody's doing good. Nita's doing well. She's she holds the fort down every day, and Kate is not baby Kate anymore.
No.
She is in 8th grade, and yeah, we're on spring break, and she's going with some friends of hers to going skiing.
Okay.
So yeah, everybody's doing well. Thanks for asking.
Absolutely. 8th grade. Wow, what a time. I was a middle school teacher for 9 years, and that's quite a time to be alive.
Yeah, it is. And that, and it's you're in kind of one of those phases where, I'm not as cool as I used to be too, so not that I ever was, but I'm definitely not now.
Well, you won't be cool for a while. Give her a chance to get a little older, then you'll be cool again. But, I've always known you as a golf coach. We haven't had that many times to interact since you left Baylor and I got to Baylor. But so I think of you as a golf coach, but you're not one anymore. You are an athletic director. So if you could, for our listeners, just catch us up on what your job is, what's a daily routine, that type of thing. What do you do now in Tyler, Texas?
Well, the athletic director at Tyler ISD, and so I have 2 high schools, Tyler Legacy and then Tyler High, and then we've got 4 middle schools. And you're basically organizing all the athletic, all the sports. And right now we're in the spring, which is probably our busiest time, because you have every sport playing for a short period of time, except for football and volleyball. So you've got a lot of events. So really just organizing events, making sure we got officials, making sure we got transportation, and we got workers. You're getting all our fields organized, ready for play, and then we're hitting the season right now where we're getting ready to hire coaches and offer contracts and do all those things. So it's definitely a busy time, but I'm enjoying what I'm doing, and it's I like it. It's a fun part, and being able to oversee a lot of different aspects of athletics.
If you gave a comparison stress level wise to coaching college golf at Baylor, what would that be? Which is higher stress level?
Oh, maybe this one a little bit. Maybe. But it's because most of the things. I'll say this. It's not a lot of kid problems. You got a lot of adult problems, maybe. And so you're always trying to deal with different things. There's always, you always, you take off and you go to a meeting, and maybe we'll be at an AD meeting, and there's, they'll always make the comment about, I appreciate you guys coming today and taking the time to come to this meeting, because we all know that something is happening back home that you're going to have to deal with when you get back, and it's usually an adult problem. So, but no, I mean, those things happen, but it's good. And like I said, I enjoy what I do, and you got good people that you enjoy being around, and so it makes it rewarding.
Well, thank you for catching us up on that and letting us know a little bit more. I'm not sure I don't think I'm as much a multitasker as you are. So I know you have to juggle a lot of sports and a lot of different parts in that. I'm pretty much meat and potatoes. I think this is all I can do.
No. Hey, but I guarantee you, what color pants you wearing today? Khaki, or it's got to be khaki, right?
Yeah, it is. How'd you know that?
I don't know. I know it's not shorts, because the only person that, I know Pam sees your legs and she thinks you have great legs, but nobody else gets to see those legs.
No, that doesn't happen. And that takes me back to when that tradition started about 25 years ago when I first got into college coaching. Yeah, recruiting. And that's where I first met you. So I was an assistant coach at Oklahoma State University, and you were the assistant coach to John Fields at Texas. And we met at the OSO Junior, the AJGA tournament at Oak Tree. And so we started making connections, as I recall. And, you asked me about Kyle, and I said, I started talking to you about Kyle and how's everything. And I asked you about Kyle, and you started talking. And it was about 10 minutes into our conversation. We just met each other. About 10 minutes in, before we realized we're talking about two different Kyles. You remember that?
Yes, I do.
I mean,
because I had, Kyle Keller, I guess, was at Oklahoma State at the, I guess he was there, and he was the basketball coach at TJC at Tyler Junior College when I was there, and then I had recruited Kyle Willman, who actually came, and he never played for me, but he did wind up going. So yeah, I remember that conversation.
So Kyle Willman had played high school golf for me at Eben North, and Kyle Keller you had coached with, and we were both asking about Kyle and different Kyles. I thought, what a strange way to meet somebody, but it did give us a little assistant coaching brotherhood, if you will, because I saw you a bunch for a good long while after that, the next few years, because we were recruiting at Oklahoma State a kid from Dallas named Matthew Rosenfeld, who won the U.S. Junior. And obviously, the University of Texas was recruiting him, so you were recruiting him as well. That summer of 2001, I don't think I'll ever forget that recruiting summer as long as I live. How about you?
I know. I think if wherever he was going, that we were there. So
you could only have one coach on the road at a time. So if the head coaches weren't out on the road, the assistant coach were. Matthew Rosenfeld had every single golf shot watched for the entire summer. Not one shot was missed by a coach. And I remember the head coaches went to the U.S. Junior, but the next 2 weeks, it was you and me on the road. And the second week, we were at the Cannon Cup. And so, we've been gone for 10 days from home, and I get a call from Mike Holder the night before the last round. We're in North Carolina at Biltmore Forest. And Mike says, you need to change your plane flight. Why is that, Coach? You're going to the Cardinal Amateur in Greensboro. You're leaving tomorrow after the final round at the Cannon Cup. And I said, really? What's your point of view on that, Greg? Because I know you had a head coach.
Well, I knew I was already going. So because I knew that Matthew was playing in the Cardinals. So I knew what I was doing. But I remember that conversation. I remember you talking about, because I think Coach Holder asked you, is Matthew playing in the Cardinal? And you said yes. And well, you're going to the Cardinal too, I think.
Well, all I remember was my countenance fell. I was so sad. I wanted to be home. And so I changed my flight and I kept the rental car. And so we leave after the round at Biltmore Forest. We're going to drive and follow each other in rental cars, and I'm following you. Now, I would like for you to tell the rest of this story, because I want to know if you're going to be truthful and honest about the day I almost died.
Well, if I can recall, your rental car was a green Ford Ranger?
Heck, I don't even know, but I guess it was.
It was green. I think it was a green Ford Ranger. And I remember, you were going to follow me. And so I remember I was getting onto whatever road's taking us to Greensboro. And I remember pulling out, you were behind me, and I pulled out, and there was a 18-wheeler. I think it was a logging truck. If I was correct. Yeah, no, I pulled out, and I think I almost got you killed right behind me. So, but luckily, that did not happen.
It did not happen. And I think we had cell phones because I think I called and yelled and screamed at you, but you almost cost me my life. But let's go back one day, or let's go back forward 4 days to the final round of the Greensboro, the Cardinal Amateur. First of all, we watched a practice round as if Matthew needed us to watch him play a practice round.
Yeah, I don't think he knew that we were interested at that point.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so we watched the first round, the second round, the third round, and we are walking up the ninth fairway of the fourth round. This is now going to be 90 holes we will have watched him that week alone. And we're both pretty miserable. We would love to be back in our respective hometowns. And I don't know exactly who came up with the idea, who hatched the plan, but we signed a blood pact on the ninth green that said, I won't tell if you won't tell. Let's go to the airport. Is that sort of the way it happened, Greg?
That's exactly how it happened. But I do recall that you, just for the record, I think it was you that decided that you wanted to leave early, and you kind of took me off. I think that was it.
Well, so if it was me, I expected you to hold tight to this. I've been holding on to this secret for 21 years. I'd like to publicly let everyone know, yes, we left and went to the airport early and took earlier flights. I do remember this. It was hard to get to results in those days. So before I left to the parking lot, I went to the golf shop and got the number for the golf shop. And when we got to the airport, we called back to ask how the tournament finished up. So at least if we were asked, we would have an idea of what happened.
Yeah. Yeah. And I do remember when we made the pact, we drove off together and we drove to the airport together to make sure that nobody could turn around and go back. I do remember that we had a big discussion on that.
Well, I've got it off my chest now, but I don't think it's unreasonable because I had watched him 3 consecutive weeks. I think missing 9 holes to get home to my wife and you to get home to Nita and me to get home to Pam was worth every bit of it.
Yeah, you bet. Yeah. Yeah. And that's something we'll always share. Yep. Yep.
Yeah, we got it. And now it's out in public. Well, listen, Greg, you were at the University of Texas then, and then in, I believe it was 2002, the job came available at Baylor. Is that correct?
2003.
Three.
I was there from 3 to 14.
Okay. So you coached here at Baylor for, gosh, a long time, and you saw a lot of changes at Baylor during that time.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess, and I tell people this too, but that, so the day that they called was on my wedding day.
Oh, wow.
And so I drove I asked Nita if I could get one phone call on our honeymoon. And so I was going to make one phone call. And then, but when we got, and we had our honeymoon in Maui. And so Kyle Keller, not Kyle Willman, called and said, "Hey, you need to turn the TV on." And so we did. And that was during the time of that was when they had the shooting, when they found the basketball player, when they had the murder on the basketball player. So that was all during that time. I came back, I interviewed, and I'll never forget. So I am sitting in the athletic director's office. I'm sitting there and the phone rings and he goes and picks it up and he says, "Hey, I'm going to have to let you go." They had found the body in the river, and he said, "I'll call you later that night." So that's when I came in during that time. But yeah, I mean, from that and seeing where things were, and then McGraw came in, Scott Drew came in right after that. And then, yeah, there was a lot of changes. There was, a lot of the building, all that stuff. And there's been a lot of changes, and there's been so much more since I've been gone, since you've been there. How much more has that thing grown? But yeah, what a special place to be a part of, and to see all those changes, and just a lot of great memories there.
Well, it's quite a run you had here. Obviously, you did some great things. One of the things I appreciated when I got the job was all the kids you had graduated. All the kids always graduated, and they made good grades. I'm pretty sure it was a 9-year stretch, 8 or 9 year stretch that you had in a row of every kid graduating that was finishing, 4 years of school. So you handed that off to me, which was great. And the kids made good grades. And I'm very proud to say we've continued that tradition. We're 8 straight years this year that everybody who was eligible to graduate has done so. And so thanks for leaving the legacy of that, for sure.
No, and I can go back to, I can think of one conversation, actually driving back from the Border Olympics, and Joachim Mikkelsen was sitting up in the front with me as we were driving back. And Joachim said, Coach, I came here to play golf. And I'm going to start focusing on golf. And I remember that conversation, and I said, but Joachim, I said, man, you've got an opportunity to be an academic All-American. And I said, why would you want to give that up? And he was like, well, what do you got to have? And so I told him the qualification. He was like, Coach, I got that. No, don't worry about that. And so at that time, I remember him thinking, hey, I'm going to put my focus on golf and not as much on academics. But making the qualifications of that, was not even a concern to him. I mean, and that's just the priority, and it's just getting, those kids, we had a lot of foreign kids that came over, and just seeing, how, from everybody, but a lot of the foreign kids see it as an opportunity when they get there, and how special that is, and that other people, because I almost lost Joachim at one point in time. I thought he was, when he went home. And I think when he got back, there were so many people that just thought, man, that, was just telling him, man, I wish I could do what you do. And I think he saw what an opportunity that he's getting that other people don't get the opportunity to get. And he came back, and, and there's just so many of them. But yeah, academics was a huge part. And, so I'm glad those guys, I'll always remember that conversation in the front seat.
Well, and I remember a conversation Mike Holder had with Scott Verplank along the same lines. I mean, very similar. And Scott became the first NCAA individual champion who was also an academic All-American, first one. And so I think it's kind of like when you decide that that's what you want the program to be about, that academics are important, I think people step up to the plate and they do it. And Scott, I think he made pretty much straight A's all the way through. But the idea is that academics, you're a student athlete. It's student comes before athlete. So that's important. But let's talk about a little bit about, like, Joachim won the Big 12 championship at Whispering Pines in 2012.
Yeah.
So that was quite an accomplishment against a great field. I mean, there was a lot of future PGA Tour players in that field. You remember that day, what it felt like? I mean, I know Baylor didn't win, but he did the individual title.
Yeah, and I walked with Joachim, all those rounds, and when we finished up, I actually had a picture of him, and I'm looking at pictures right here that I have on the wall of him, and on that day, and we were actually playing with Oklahoma State, and I'm trying to think of what is his name? Can't remember on that final round.
Was it Ian Davis?
No, it's not. He let his hair grow out. Golly.
Tanner Kesterson.
That's it. Yep. That was him. Yep. He played with him, and we finished on the front. And so we had to kind of wait around, and, you had Jordan Spieth, you had all those guys. And so, yeah, that was a great day, and Keem played really well. And so that was a pretty special moment.
That was another special moment your team had was in 2010. Let's talk about that. when I look back on that, I remember where I was. I was coaching at Oklahoma State at the time, and we were at Crabapple in Atlanta, Georgia. And we had finished our round. We weren't going to get our flight until later that evening. So we were watching on the internet the regional in College Station, and that's where you all were. So you ended up being in a playoff with like literally a superstar golf team, the Georgia Bulldogs at the time. Talk about that day, because we were watching it from afar.
Well, I know it was going to take a really good round for us that last day, and we got off to a good start and played well. And man, I just remember the one thing I do remember, because we were trying to close that round out, and we wound up getting a good number in, and Georgia was behind us, and I was watching the scoreboard. So, and it was coming down, and it was close, and we had a few shots with, as far as when Georgia was coming in, there was a few shot, we had them by a few shots coming in, and man, I was pacing. And I remember I went off by myself, and I walked around where their facility is, around their building, and just walking around by myself. And now, man, I was just praying, please let us get in this thing. And then I get back over there, and they made a birdie to tie us on that last hole. And then we go to the playoff. And I remember standing on the first playoff hole. On that hole, we're standing there, and Hacker, he says, Priesty, man, I just hate that this is you, and so I went over and I talked to our guys, and I said, man, I was telling them, I said, man, y'all have got an opportunity. Don't let them take this away from you, man. You go and you earn this thing. And well, we stepped up to the challenge, and they had there's Russell Hensley and Harris English. You had those two guys on there, golly, and but we stepped up, and we just kind of. I remember they hit it in the trees, and we somehow we found a way, and we got it done. So that was a big.
What hole was the playoff on?
Let's see. What was it on? God, how do I not remember that? I know what hole. I remember the hole. It's soon. Let's see.
It's 18.
Is it? Was it 18?
Yeah, I remember watching the video.
Well, I was thinking 18, but 18 finished. Oh, yeah, because you finished and then you had to drive up. Yeah, so it would be 18.
Okay, well, Mikkel, thank you for jumping in there. I was going to bring you in a second anyway. Greg, I've got your former player and my current assistant coach, Bjerch-Andresen. Now, let's get one thing straight. Mikkel is the brains of this podcast. He's the guy that edits everything. So if you mess this up, he's got you covered. Right, Mikkel?
Right. Let me add one thing about that regional, because I came in the year after. And I remember watching the video. Like, I feel like my freshman year, coach, we watched this video like 3 times of the team making the playoff there. And I remember Ryan O'Rear horseshoe lipping in a 3-footer. I remember that JP jumping up and down.
Yeah.
Over the hill there, because he had like a 3-wood in. So that was a big thing for our program, and I remember that coming in.
And JP made a big putt.
That's
right.
That
made a big putt on that hole. Hey, and you want to know so we wound up beating them in the playoff, and we get to nationals. And Tyler is probably. He may be 4 or 5 years old. Let's see. That's so 2010. Yeah, he's 5. He's 4 because, he's probably about to turn 5. And we're at he gets the program. And Tyler loved programs. And so he's flicking through the program, and he goes, Dad, you're not in the program. And I'm like, what? I'm like, nah, you must have just missed us. So we start looking through the program, and they did not put us in the national championship program. They put Georgia in the program.
Oh my gosh.
And it was Tyler. It was Tyler that found it.
Boy, that's a bit of golf trivia history that's just been released.
Yeah. And so they went back, and they made some little photocopy, they went and made copies and just slid them in the program. Yeah.
Wow. Well, Mikkel, I want you and Greg to talk a little bit here about how a young boy who was a cross-country skier in Norway finds his way to Waco, Texas. The two of you should talk about that. How did that happen?
Yeah, those were special days. It's think about you, Coach Priest and Nita, and your family a lot, because we live right by where you guys used to live. I go running by our old house all the time, and it's different when you're coming from overseas, because I landed 2 days before the first day of school, and Coach Priest picked me up, and I had 2 bags, and so Coach Priest and his family meant a lot to me. That's for sure.
Yeah, and I, and it was all off Joachim, and getting that. So once I got Joachim here, I think that was big, and so being able to recruit Mikkel and getting to know him, and when I remember, we had the visit, but yeah, I can remember picking you up at the airport that day and bringing you home, and and just spend a lot of time talking to your mom, and just different things. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people, you recruit a lot of people, you have a lot of, you become involved with a lot of people throughout your career, and, definitely Mikkel, and there's, one of the best ones I've ever had, a pleasure of being able to coach. So.
Well, I appreciate that, Coach. I really respected how open you were, like with your family. I remember my dad visiting the first Thanksgiving, and we came over to your house and had Thanksgiving with your family, and all those things. I think about that a lot. But one thing that's kind of funny, Coach, is I go by Mikkel in Norway, but that's not quite accurate. But you were the one that started this, and I've just gone by Mikkel ever since in English, because you were the first coach to recruit me. And so on the phone you said, "Hey, is this Mikkel?" I was like, "Yep, it's Mikkel."
Okay, well, they are. So so what is it?
Well, technically it's Mikkel, so you go like quicker at the start.
Yeah.
But Mikkel is so much easier for everybody. But you started that, and so I kind of have my name from you a little bit.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
That's a good story right there. I've heard everybody in Norway calls you. Pronounce it again, Mikkel.
Yeah. And if you meet Norwegians around me and we speak like English and stuff, they're unsure of what to call me. Have you noticed that? That's because
I'm sorry, I have noticed that actually.
Yeah, that's because it's a bit different. But anyways.
Well, okay, Greg, you brought Mikkel over here, and he played for you for 3 years, and then you took the job at Tyler right after his junior year. So I actually got to coach Mikkel. So we both have an experience of having coached Mikkel, and now he's working for me as my assistant. So this is kind of a nice little full circle we've gone here. You brought him to the country, and I brought him back to Waco, it's great for our program. Mikkel, we're glad you're here. And
I appreciate it. And it's funny because I joke with Coach McGraw all the time, Coach Priest. I say that, he tried to recruit me to Oklahoma State. He just couldn't get it done. Coach Priest out recruited you. And then he had to follow me here after.
Well,
so yeah. And then Andreas, so how much was Andreas there? 2 years?
Andreas came the year after me, which was another Norwegian.
But Coach McGraw, you had Andreas for 2 years.
Yes.
If that is how you say his name.
That is pretty close. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Okay. Well, there we've gone through our Norwegian from Joachim Mikkelsen to Mikkel Bjerch-Andresen to Andreas Yesteby. Wow.
Hey, it is not, but I will have to tell you, it is not. We do not want to. We probably don't want to get into how he came up with the JP. That's probably not. That's for a. That's not.
Yeah, different style of podcast. That one.
Yeah. Okay. We won't do that on this. This is a family podcast, so we're good. Okay. All right. Okay, Greg. Let's talk about some other individuals that you basically brought into the program here at Baylor. One would be Ryan Blagg. Ryan Blagg is the current head coach at Louisville and doing a great job and was my assistant for 6 years. But you brought him from Houston Baptist up here. Tell me about getting Ryan here and how special he was to you.
Well, Ryan played for me at Tyler Junior College.
Mm-hmm.
So, we were fortunate enough to, Ryan was at Mansfield and so he was one of my first recruits that I had that came in and played for me there. And, we won a national championship and then I wound up leaving and getting the job at Sam Houston. And I tried to get Ryan to come play at Sam Houston. And, he went to Arkansas and after he finished up his playing career, he was getting into coaching and he went to Houston Baptist and I at the time I had interviewed him maybe a year or two before and that was right when he was coming out of playing and I decided not to. I went with a different person and so he stayed and got some experience and then when the job came back open and then I hired him the next time. But man, what a great hire and he's such a hard worker and I'm happy for him. I'm glad. I mean, guys at Louisville now, and so I mean that's pretty neat whenever you see those guys move on and do that. But Ryan was a great big asset for us, and he did a lot of the heavy lifting and did all those. So really happy for him for what he's doing now.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I've had several assistant coaches through the years from Oklahoma State to Baylor, and I still have yet to run into an assistant coach that I'm not really happy with. I mean, Mikkel, they're all different. I mean, really different personalities. But there was Brian Goots, Alan Bratton, and Donnie Darr at Oklahoma State, and here I've had Ryan Blagg and Mikkel. So there's a value in having a great assistant coach because the head coach can't do everything, and we can't be everything for those players. But an assistant coach, pretty valuable.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, speaking of that, two of your other former players are actually assistant coaches in college golf right now. And I'll ask you to talk about both of them because you brought them both from small towns in Texas. Before you started recruiting internationally a little bit, before that, you did pretty well in Texas. You coached Ryan Baccia, and Ryan became a first-team All-American and a Palmer Cupper. I don't know. I think Tim Hobby signed him. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I was at Texas then, so I recruited him. We were recruiting. I thought we were going to come down to it, and he wound up going to Baylor. So
yeah, well, and you ended up getting to coach him, which was great. But two Alcorns, Jeremy Alcorn and Bill Alcorn, they're both assistant coaches now. Jeremy is at Liberty, and Bill is at the University of Oklahoma, doing great job as assistant coaches. Talk about their career at Baylor, and then what aspects of their personalities did you think make them a good coach?
Well, Germ, whenever he came in, so Hobby actually recruited him and got him signed too, and so they were freshmen when I came in, and man, that was a good recruiting class. You had him and Jeremy Fry, and you had Botch there, and so yeah, Germ, a very good player. Boy, he played really well for us for those 4 years. And, Jeremy, I think all those things that when you're a player, and I'm sure Mikkel's kind of seeing the same thing, all those things that those players always think, man, what in the heck is that guy doing? I can't believe he made all those things that used to drive me nuts and probably they used to question. Now they're in that role. They're thinking, oh yeah, I think I do understand, maybe what he was trying to do. But, I think when, Germ, man, really good player. And then went out and had a little bit of played professional a little bit. And then he was a caddy. And so I think whenever he had the chance, he just, his knowledge and those things, I think that was going to be a great fit for him, of him being able to go and coach. Bill, Bill had a very good career for us, you know, and you know, I think about Bill. We played Carson Creek. Uh, you know, Bill was, I mean, we had a good team that year, and they had Lorenzo Scotto.
Mm-hmm.
I remember I took Lorenzo as a just took him up there and just said, "Hey, Lorenzo, one of these days you're going to play in this thing. I'm gonna take you up here and just have you kind of watch." And so Lorenzo was during the practice round. He had a book. He was reading and he was going and he was sitting around reading a book. And then so we were in the practice round. We were on the front side. I don't remember what hole. And I remember Bill hit a shot. You know, you get all these bad lies out at Carson Creek. You know, there's not, you know, you know, all those tough lies you get out there, you know,
Mm-hmm.
in the fairway. And Bill hits a shot and he grabs his wrist and he starts shaking his wrist and then we get to, he hurts his wrist. And then, and I remember talking to him that night and he was like, "Coach, I don't think I can play." And so I remember going and watching and so we're trying to decide if he can play. And so he's on the driving range that next morning, he's hitting shots and he's just striping them, just hitting them. And I'm thinking, all right, we're good. And then he was the first one off because somehow it was in reverse order, I think. And so the first one, or we had to make the decision before the first guy teed off if he was going to play or not. And he turns around and he says, "Coach, I can't play. I'm not going to be able to play." And I'm like, "What?" And I turned around to Lorenzo. I said, "Lorenzo, you got to get your bat. You got to get your stuff." And so he goes and gets his stuff and he plays. And we almost made it out. I mean, we came very close to getting out that time. But yeah. And then the next week, Bill goes and shoots 59 at Ridgewood. So, yeah.
That was a freak deal.
Yes, it was. And but Bill, you know, both those guys, Bill and Germ, both, you know, both great guys, man. And you know, I'm happy for them and what they're doing, and you know, I think they're a huge asset too where they are, and you couldn't think of two better guys that you would want, you know, on your team and in your program.
I agree. They both actually represent Baylor well to this day. I think Jeremy will often wear a green T-shirt underneath whatever he's wearing.
Well, I think Germ, you know, when he was at Tech, I think they actually had to tell him he got in a little bit of a bind there. I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
You're not mistaken. That happened.
Yeah. I think so.
Hey, Coach Priest, talking about some of these guys, and you bring up a Lorenzo story. That's one of my first memories. You know, we had two Italians on the team that year. We had Lorenzo as a senior, and then coming in with me was Filippo Zucchetti from Italy, and we were freshmen. And so me, Filippo, and Kyle, that I believe we'll get to here shortly, Kyle Jones, we went out for our first practice. We just cleared the medicals and stuff. And that's one of my first memories of you, like, being out on the course and coaching us and stuff. And so we were playing Bear Ridge, getting ready for qualifying. And we're on hole 15. And we're all kind of just feeling each other out, our three freshmen and the coaches. And you go up to Filippo, you say, "Hey, Filippo, this is a par 4, right?" He said, "Yes, coach." You said, "Let's say you make a 7. What is that called?" And Filippo goes, "Triple." And you just burst out laughing. You knew exactly what was coming. And like the whole tension just dropped.
Those are all good times.
Yeah.
I know I did a lot of stupid stuff, but yeah.
Those two Italians had that was a good time that first year.
And I can remember Lorenzo, the squirrel was a squeal. Yeah, a squeal.
Even as a senior, being here 4 years.
So you just spoke about Filippo, who was in the class of 2011, but Greg, you had a player that wasn't highly recruited, but he turned out to be one of the best players Baylor's ever had, and that was Kyle Jones from Snowflake, Arizona. Now, how in the world does a coach in Waco, Texas, get a guy who's not very well known in Snowflake, Arizona, to come to Waco? How did this happen? I want to hear that story.
Well, I think a lot of it had to do with Austin Burke. Austin was the assistant then at that time, and Austin came from Rice, and I'm thinking that he had recruited him a little bit at Rice, and so when he came in, we started talking. That's kind of how we got on him, and then I called Randy Line out at Arizona State and said, hey, what can you tell me about this guy? And he was like, and Randy was kind of like, oh, he was like, yeah, he's on our list and he's a good player. And because I knew that's where Kyle had, one of the places that Kyle had wanted to go. And so Randy spoke very highly of him, but he just was not going to be able to, offer him a scholarship. And so we wound up kind of swooping in there and getting him. And, but yeah, I have to put that deal, that's Austin Burke that found him.
Well, good job, Austin Burke, because my first year at Baylor benefited greatly from all three of the 2011s. So Filippo, Mikkel both played every tournament that year. And then obviously Kyle did as well. Kyle became a second team All-American that year and a Palmer Cupper, and it truly had one of the most decorated careers, but he did it in an unusual way. Kyle was not a long hitter at all. Everything he did was just maximizing what God gave him.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, just a good, just could find a way to get it in the hole. So yeah, no, Kyle is great. And yeah, Kyle had a really good career, and I enjoyed coaching him, and I think that's the good thing about it. You want kids players, I call them kids, but you enjoy being around them. And there was a lot of good kids that represented the school well, and that you'll always remember.
Yeah. And again, when I took over in June of 2014, that was a quick turnaround. You became, it was pretty much overnight. Brian Black will tell you, it was like he wasn't expecting it. I'm not sure you thought it was actually going to happen, but you handed the program over to me in a very good place. Really good players, great students, wonderful kids. So I'll always have that to say thank you, Greg, for that, because I didn't have to start from ground zero. You had the program in a great place. So thank you.
You bet. And Tim Hobby had the same for me. I stepped into a program that was on the right track, and Tim kind of said, I remember us talking. He said, I feel like I kind of took it about as far as I could take it, and it needed to, and then when I came in, I took it about as far as I could take it, and you were definitely the right person to come in that could take that thing to the next level and above what I could do, for sure. And so I being able to see the success that you guys have had, it's phenomenal. It's great. It's pretty neat.
Well, thank you. It's been great. And I've been fortunate to be able to bring a guy like Mikkel, who's literally his only experience, it was playing the game was here at Baylor. And then he was coaching before he got here. And Mikkel, you wouldn't have left to go any other assistant coaching job in the country. Is that correct?
No, for sure not. I love everything about Baylor, and that's a credit to both you guys and Austin Burke and Ryan Black as well. And, my family loves Baylor. My wife loves Baylor. So we're super happy to be back. And I remember that summer where I got the phone call from you, Coach Priest. I remember where I was. I was actually walking in Cameron Park because I believe I was here for summer school, and you called and said, hey, I'm leaving and I'm taking this job. And I was crushed, and didn't know it was going to happen. But you said, I think you already knew that Coach McGraw was kind of one of the candidates, or maybe the leading candidate. And you said something like, this might work out better for all of us. Like, you're going to get a great coach. And I think your replacement couldn't have been better. And like, our team did so well that year too. So the transition went really smooth.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you for that, Mikkel. I just know that it's been the greatest place I could have landed. I don't know where I would have done better after leaving Oklahoma State than come here. So this has been great. But so, Greg, before we finish up, I'm going to do a speed round with you here in a few minutes that I haven't prepared you for. But before we do it, I want to ask a couple more questions, and then we'll go to that speed round to finish up. Is that good?
Sounds good.
Okay. What do you miss most about coaching? Now, I realize, and as an administrator, you actually do some coaching, whether you like it or not. I know you do that. But what do you miss most about being in the coaching arena in the collegiate setting?
Probably your interaction with your players, and then also the fraternity that you were in of coaches, and going on the road, and all those recruiting trips and all those things. I mean, I think that's the biggest part that you miss the most. So yeah, that would be those two things.
Okay, good. Okay, now I'm gonna ask a little bit of a controversial question. What's one thing you don't miss about, just one thing it's like, okay, I probably don't miss that anymore?
I think for me, I mean, it's the reason that really kind of ultimately got me out, that made me make the change, was the travel. And I had two small kids at the time, and they were kind of getting into sports. I remember where I was whenever when I started thinking about making the change. And but Tyler was, I guess Tyler was, let's see, what was that, 2013? So he's 7. They were in fourth grade when we moved. Kate was going into first grade, or going into kindergarten. And I can remember, Tyler was playing sports, and I was watching, he's playing, and you're watching things on Game Changer, and you're missing all those events. And I was tired of missing those things. I didn't want to miss those opportunities growing up. And we were at Oregon, and we were at the NCAA regional, and I can remember the day. I mean, we finished, we didn't play good that day. And I was walking, and Tyler was playing, and I was watching a game on Game Changer. And I can remember I started walking down the 10th fairway, and I was sitting there thinking, and I just, I remember I was just thinking, God, if there's something that you have, something else you have in place for me, I'm willing to do it. And I'm ready. But if this is the place, if I'm meant to stay at Baylor, then I want to do it. And I'm committed to that. And about 5 minutes later, the phone rang, and it was my brother. And he was like, hey, the AD job at Tyler's open. Would you be interested in it? And that's kind of started the ball rolling. And so I think I did mine for family. I wanted to be a dad, and I wanted to see my kids grow up, and because you watch, as you go through this, you watch everybody else. You sacrifice your kids for everybody else's kids. I wanted to be a dad, and not that my job has gotten any easier. I think that, I spend more, my hours are longer than I've ever had, because I'm somewhere pretty much every night, except for maybe some Mondays and some Wednesdays and Sundays. But all the other days I'm watching events. I'm, up early and going, but I'm at home every night. Very seldom am I ever on the road. So that's the biggest part for me.
Well, I appreciate you saying that. I know a lot of coaches through the years have left our profession because it is a little rough on the families. And I know it was rough for Pam a lot of those early years, especially when I was at Oklahoma State. So I've got better perspective now on how much I travel as well. Okay. Well, Greg, I appreciate you joining us today. I want to end it with a little speed round.
Hey, but before I do it, can I do one thing?
Yes, sir.
Can you go back and talk about this? I know your favorite place of any place in the world that you want to go is Miami. I know that you love that place. Can you talk about the incident where you stepped into you were trying to get onto the elevator? Can you
will
through that real quick?
Okay, so thank you for bringing that up. This is a recruiting story for sure. So my early years at Oklahoma State, Mike Holder asked me to go to the Doral and the Orange Bowl. And so I convinced Pam that she could just come along, hang out at the beach, will spend Christmas Day on Miami Beach, and then I'll go recruit at the Orange Bowl and come home. But this became an every year thing, and Pam was not having any of it after a couple of years. But one of those years, we witnessed a shooting at a mall. Nobody spoke the language. It was very, very difficult for me to exist down there. I was very stressed out all the time. So we come down to the last night that we're going to be in Miami. It's 12 days I've been in Miami, and I'm trying to get a parking place. And we have a friend who's joining us for dinner too, and he gets a parking place right away. And so I'm going around, I see another parking place, and somebody pulls in right in front of me. Well, that's the last straw. I'm furious. And the elevator was right there. So I told Pam, you go over in the elevator and I'll be right there. So I went and found another parking place, came, and they held the elevator, and I got in, and it was full. And all the people are facing me, including Pam. And I'm facing them because I just got in the elevator in time. And it just occurred to me, I've had it with this place. And so I'm looking at all these people, and I said, you guys call this a quality of life? Are you kidding me? I wouldn't live here if you paid me $5 million. I can't take this anymore. And these people, they didn't speak English, so they didn't understand what I was saying. And Pam is looking at me with this horrified look on her face, like, you can't be screaming at people. Yeah, I screamed at people in an elevator at the Cheesecake Factory. Sorry.
No, I knew that was your favorite one. So.
Well, anyway, I missed Christmas several years in a row. I was on Miami Beach, but that's a whole nother story. But anyway, Greg, thank you for having me bring up that recruiting story. And now we're going to do a speed round before we finish here. You ready?
I guess so.
Just as fast as you can. It doesn't have to be real fast. All right. Shawshank Redemption or Remember the Titans?
Shawshank.
Excellent. Chipotle or Chick-fil-A?
Chick-fil-A.
Well done. George Strait or Luke Bryan? Be careful. George Strait or Luke Bryan?
Well, now I listen to Luke Bryan a little bit more, but I would say George Strait.
Okay. First of all, I'm going to give you a B-, maybe a C+ on that, because I don't care if you listen to George Strait less than you used to. You can't even put him in the same conversation with Luke Bryan. I don't get it.
No, I know.
Okay. Favorite golf course you've played?
I still like St. Andrews when we went over there and played. I mean, even though it's not the best golf course, that was pretty cool.
That's excellent. Most famous person you've ever met?
Most famous person I've ever met.
Speed round, Greg. Speed round.
Wow, I don't know. I don't meet very many people.
Got to be a baseball player, surely.
Ryan Sandberg. Yeah,
there you go.
I don't know why that took me so long, but yes, Ryan Sandberg was my favorite player growing up.
Now, the most famous person you ever played golf with? You had to play with this person. Golf.
I haven't played with very many famous people. Golly. I don't think I've we brought all the guys back, the Texas Longhorns back. We brought all those guys back. So just being on the range with those guys, Tom Kite to all those guys.
That's fair enough. Favorite pro athlete?
Favorite pro athlete was Ryan Sandberg.
Okay. That's also the most famous person you've ever met. Favorite Baylor Bear athlete? Just favorite one.
Robert Griffin.
Oh, wow. Nice. All right. Final question. Your dream foursome, you and 3 others. Who are those people? They could be dead or alive.
Be dead or alive. Oh, I think you'd love to play with Tiger Woods. You'd love to do that. Jack Nicklaus. One more. I still would go back with Ryan Sandberg because that was my childhood person that I loved, that I always wanted to be.
That's a pretty good foursome right there.
Let me get a speed round question in there too.
Go ahead.
Coach Priest, if you add up all of the baseball that you watch on your phone, be it Texas Rangers, be it the game cast, whatever you watch Tyler on, over under 1,000 hours a year.
Be over. Be
There
over.
you go.
Over 1,000 hours a year, Greg?
Yes, I mean, I would. Now the Rangers are not very good, so I don't watch the Rangers very much anymore. But
I don't believe that. There's no
no,
way.
I really don't. I don't think I really watched any games, and I don't know any of the players.
Really?
They are not very good.
What
But
has
now-
happened?
Well, they're not very good. So, but yeah, you spend so much time. I watch more in person now. So,
We'll count that too. We'll go over 1,000. I believe that.
yeah, probably so.
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Yeah,
Greg,
you may have
thank
to take that speed. That one speed round was not a speed. The one question was not a speed round.
that's
Yeah.
true.
Yeah, so you may have to edit that one a little bit. Don't make me look too bad.
All right, Greg. Listen, it was great catching up today. It was a great Baylor catch up, if you will. I mean, because obviously you're a big part of this university for a long time in this golf program. So thank you for taking the time, and best of luck with everything going forward.
Hey, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me, and best of luck to you guys. So, good
Appreciate
luck. Good luck to the Big 12, and then advancing on to regionals and nationals.
Thanks, Greg.
Thanks,
Appreciate it.
Coach.
All right, take care. Y'all have a great day.